By the time my plane landed, 62 people had already received a message saying I was unstable. I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that Natalie wasn't waiting at arrivals. Her sister was. Mara stood beside baggage claim, holding a welcome sign in one hand and my house key in the other. The tag carried my father's handwriting. Home. Before you ask, she said, Natalie told everyone you might cause a scene tonight. What scene? Mara unlocked her phone. She made me promise not to show you this. Then why are you here? Because I believed her the last time. She handed me the phone. The message had gone to Natalie's parents, the wedding party, 2 coworkers, and people from the Arts Foundation. Daniel has been under extreme stress. Please do not engage if he becomes controlling or confrontational. I am handling the situation privately. My flight had landed 11 minutes earlier. Why do you have my key? She told me to keep you away from the house until 8. Behind the glass, a driver held a sign for someone who had been expected. Did you believe her? Until she asked me to take down the camera above your study bookcase. My hand stayed on the suitcase handle. She said it was broken? Mara nodded. It isn't. A second message appeared. Keep him at Mom's. Luke needs another hour to finish the room. Not leave. Not pack. Finish. Natalie called. Mara declined it, but her hand had started shaking. If we go now, she'll tell everyone I helped you threaten her. And if we wait, she gets another hour to decide what the camera sees. For most of my life, I would have called Natalie first, asked for an explanation, given her time to prepare one. Instead, I took the key from Mara. The metal was warm, but it no longer felt like proof that I had a home. We're not going in alone. Who are you calling? I opened the contact for the neighbor whose doorbell faced my driveway. If she wants witnesses, we'll bring our own. Mrs. Alvarez answered on the third ring. She had lived across from me since before I replaced the roof, before Natalie moved her clothes into my closet, before anyone began discussing ivory table linens as if civilization depended on them. Daniel, are you still in Arizona? I landed 20 minutes ago. A pause. Oh. The word carried more information than it should have. Is someone at my house? Mara watched my face, while Mrs. Alvarez lowered her voice. There has been a black SUV there since Tuesday. I thought it belonged to one of the wedding people. Have you seen Natalie? Yes. Anyone else? Another pause. A man. Tall. Dark hair. He carried boxes in this afternoon. Mara turned toward the terminal windows. Did he carry anything out? Not that I saw. Daniel, is something wrong? I could have said no. The word had saved many dinners, postponed several arguments, and helped Natalie turn every hard question into evidence that I was creating pressure where none existed. Yes, I said. Something is wrong. Mara's head came back around. I asked Mrs. Alvarez to save her doorbell footage and not approach the house. She agreed without asking for the kind of details people usually pretend they do not want. When I ended the call, Mara took a breath. You said yes. To what? That something was wrong. I'm trying a new thing. Honesty? Don't oversell it. Her mouth almost curved, but the phone vibrated again. This time, Natalie had sent a message to me. Welcome home. I'm at Mom and Dad's. Mara is confused and emotional. Please come here before you do anything impulsive. Mara, read it over my shoulder. I'm emotional? You declined 2 calls. Clearly dangerous. She always does that. Does what? Names the reaction before anyone can have it. The baggage area had emptied around us. A maintenance worker pushed a row of carts past the carousel. My suitcase stood between us like an object recovered from a different life. Mara folded the welcome sign once, then again. I need to tell you what I meant about believing her last time. Not here. You deserve to know. I probably do. The old response rose automatically. Make it easier for her. Soften the moment. Tell her whatever she had done could wait. Peace first. Truth later. But later was how people built whole rooms inside your life without permission. We'll talk in the car, I said, and you'll tell me all of it. She nodded. Her car was parked on the 5th level of the garage, an aging gray hatchback with a cracked cup holder and 3 rolls of wallpaper samples in the back seat. Natalie had once called it an embarrassment. Mara had replied that at least it started every morning without needing compliments. I put my suitcase in the trunk. She held out her hand for the key. Why? You've been traveling all day. I'll drive. That isn't what I asked. Her fingers lowered. You think I might give it back to her? I think I don't know what happened. while I was gone. The answer hurt her. I saw it in the way she tucked her hand into her coat pocket. Fair, she said. The drive from the airport usually took 35 minutes. Mara made it through the first 7 minutes without speaking. Downtown lights slid across the windshield. My phone continued to collect messages. Natalie's mother. Please come to us first. One of the groomsmen. Call me before you do something you can't undo. My coworker, Owen. Are you okay? Natalie sensed something strange. Nobody asked what had happened. They asked whether I could be managed. Mara tapped the steering wheel at a red light. 3 weeks ago, when you called me, Natalie wasn't at the bridal fitting. I remember what you told me. She was with Luke. The light changed, but the car behind us had to honk before Mara moved. How did you know? I saw them leaving a restaurant near his apartment, and you told me she was trying on a wedding dress. Yes, the city passed in clean lines of glass and streetlight. Why? My mother had just learned Dad needed another procedure. Natalie said if I told you, the wedding would collapse. Mom would blame herself, and Dad would refuse the surgery because of the cost. That sounds like Natalie. It sounded possible. No, it sounded useful. Mara gripped the wheel. I also knew what everyone would say. That I had always wanted you. That I was jealous. That I was trying to destroy her life so I could step into it. I turned toward her. Did you? She kept her eyes on the road. Want you? Yes. Her jaw tightened. That isn't the question you should be asking tonight. It's the one you answered. I never acted on it. But you lied to protect the person who did. She flinched. There it was. Not innocence. Not rescue. A real wound between us before anything else could begin. I'm sorry, she said. I watched the traffic signal change ahead. Accepted, I said. Not erased. Mara nodded once. We were 6 blocks from my house when my study camera went offline. The alert appeared across my phone screen. Device disconnected. A second later, Mrs. Alvarez sent a still image from her doorbell camera. The black SUV was backed into my driveway. Luke stood beside it, holding a banker's box. Natalie was behind him, carrying the blue folder that contained the deed to my house. Mara pulled to the curb without being asked. My father's key pressed into my palm. Across the street, my porch light went dark. Mara killed the headlights 2 houses before mine. The porch across the street remained lit. Mrs. Alvarez stood behind her curtain with one hand raised, letting us know she had seen the car. My own house looked empty. That was the first lie it told me. The second was the neatness. No vehicle in the driveway. No movement behind the windows. No music leaking through the walls. From the curb, it could have been any Tuesday night before Natalie moved in. Back when I came home to 1 lamp, 1 coffee mug, and the certainty that every object inside was where I had left it. I had bought the place 6 years earlier with money saved from jobs nobody wanted, flooded basements, winter roof failures, hotels that needed to reopen before insurance checks arrived. My father had helped me move 1 dresser, written home on the spare key, and left before sunset because even sobriety had not taught us how to spend a full day together. The house was the first thing in my life that did not require me to study someone else's mood before opening a door. Natalie moved in 18 months ago. Within a week, her books filled my study, her photographs replaced 2 of mine, and the spare key became hers. I had mistaken that expansion for commitment. My phone vibrated again. Natalie. I let it ring. Mara watched the dark porch. You don't have to answer. I know. You say that like you're about to. I pressed my thumb against the screen without accepting the call. For years, my fastest instinct had been to calm the person who hurt me before I asked what the damage cost. That habit had started with my father. He could turn a late electric bill into a trial, a spilled drink into evidence, a tired answer into disrespect. My mother learned to move quietly. I learned to apologize before he finished accusing me. By 17, I could lower the temperature of a kitchen without anyone noticing I had entered it. People called that maturity. Natalie called it one of the things she loved about me. You never make anything worse, she had said on our 4th date. At the time, it sounded like praise. Now it sounded like a job description. The call stopped. A voicemail appeared immediately. Mara kept both hands on the steering wheel. Play it. You sure? No. I put the phone on speaker. Natalie's voice came through calm and soft. Daniel. I know Mara has been filling your head with things. Please don't go to the house in this state. Come to my parents' place so we can speak privately. I'm worried about you, and I don't want your fear turning this into something it isn't. No explanation for Luke. No mention of the blue folder. No question about my flight. Just a complete version of me, delivered in 30 seconds. Mara stared through the windshield. She sounds like she's leaving a message for a jury. She's leaving one for anyone I might play it to. What are you going to do? I reached for the door handle, then stopped. The old Daniel wanted to drive to her parents' house, sit at their polished dining table. Let Helen pour tea while Natalie explained that Luke was helping with wedding storage, that the camera had failed, that I had misunderstood the message because I was exhausted. I could already hear myself saying, maybe I came in too hard. The sentence tasted familiar. Mara turned in her seat. Don't. I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. Her voice was sharper than it had been at the airport. You're building her explanation for her. That's not what I'm doing. It is. You're taking every fact you have and sanding down the edges until nobody has to bleed. I pulled my hand away from the door. You lied to me 3 weeks ago. You don't get to lecture me about facts. The words landed cleanly. Mara's face closed, but she did not turn away. You're right. No defense. No reminder that she had come to the airport. No attempt to make my anger unfair because hers was useful now. She reached into the back seat, took one of the wallpaper rolls, and placed it on the floor so it would stop knocking against the door. I don't get to tell you how to feel, she said. But I know what you do when someone gives you a mess. You start organizing it for them. That was worse because it was true. Inside my coat pocket, the key pressed against my thigh. Mrs. Alvarez sent another message. The SUV left through the alley. I saved the video. Mara read it with me. They're gone, or they want us to think they are. We can call the police. And say what? My fiancée used a key I gave her? She removed documents. We saw her carrying a folder. Your deed was in it. Maybe. Mara exhaled through her nose. There. You did it again. Did what? Made uncertainty safer than the obvious answer. I opened the car door. Cold air cut through the heat trapped inside. Stay here. No. Mara. I'm not letting you walk into that house alone after she told 62 people you were unstable. You think standing beside me helps? I think it gives her one less empty space to fill. She got out before I could answer. Mrs. Alvarez met us halfway across the street, wearing house slippers and a winter coat over floral pajamas. She held her phone like a witness who had been waiting years for formal recognition. I did not go over there, she said. You told me not to. Thank you. But I wrote down the license plate. Mara blinked. Mrs. Alvarez shrugged. My husband watched crime shows for 38 years. Some education transfers. She showed us 2 saved clips. In the first, Luke carried 3 banker's boxes from the house to the SUV. In the second, Natalie followed with the blue folder under her arm. She stopped near the passenger door, turned toward my house, and said something the camera did not catch. Luke answered. Natalie slapped him. Not hard enough to knock him back, hard enough to erase any idea that they were calmly finishing a room. Mrs. Alvarez lowered the phone. I don't know what this is, Daniel, but that woman was angry. My first instinct was to protect Natalie from the word. Tired, maybe. Panicked. Under pressure. I had spent 4 years translating her worst behavior into language polite enough to live beside. She was angry, I said. Mara's eyes moved toward me. Mrs. Alvarez handed me a folded piece of paper, the plate number, and the time they left. I thanked her and crossed the street. The key slid into the lock but would not turn. I tried again. Nothing. Mara stepped onto the porch behind me. Did she change it? My palm tightened around the brass. The porch light had not burned out. Someone had removed the bulb. I bent toward the lock and saw bright scratches around the cylinder. Fresh metal against old paint. She didn't change it, I said. What did she do? Before I could answer, the deadbolt moved from the other side. Someone was still inside. The deadbolt slid back. Mara moved beside me, close enough that her sleeve touched mine, but not close enough to suggest either of us knew what came next. The door opened 6 inches. A man in a gray work shirt stared through the gap. A cordless drill hung from one hand. He was maybe 40, broad across the shoulders, with metal filings caught in the hair on his forearm. Mrs. Reed said you'd be in Arizona until Monday. I'm not married. His grip loosened on the drill. Behind him, my entryway light was on. A canvas tool bag sat beneath the coat hooks. The lock cylinder I had installed after buying the house lay on a white towel beside 3 new keys. The man opened the door another inch. Daniel Reed? Yes. He read my face. Then the suitcase near the steps. Then Mara. I'm Aaron Pike. Pike Security and Lock. I was hired to perform an emergency rekey. By Natalie Voss. She said Natalie Reed. Mara pulled out her phone. Aaron raised his free hand. I'm not part of whatever this is. She showed identification, a utility bill, and a signed authorization. Whose signature? Yours. The drill stopped swinging. I took my wallet out slowly and handed him my license. He compared it to something on a clipboard inside. That's the same license, he said. The same card? A scan of it. My license had never left my wallet during the Phoenix assignment. A scanned copy was stored in one place, the blue folder. Aaron stepped back from the doorway. You should come in. The house smelled like sawdust, hot metal, and Natalie's citrus perfume. Her coat was gone from the hook. So were the framed engagement photographs from the console table. Pale rectangles remained where they had stood. Mara folded the crooked welcome sign and set it beside my suitcase. Aaron showed me the work order. Emergency Domestic Safety Rekey. The customer note read, returning partner has demonstrated escalating behavior. Do not provide duplicate key without written approval from Natalie Reed. My name appeared beneath the authorization line in a signature close enough to pass if someone expected it to be real. It leaned too far to the right. I signed construction contracts every week. My real signature dropped at the end because a hand injury at 26 had changed the way I formed the final letter. This one rose. Did she tell you I threatened her? I asked. Aaron rubbed his thumb across the clipboard edge. She said she was trying to leave safely. Mara's phone lowered. The message to 62 people had not been panic. It had been preparation. When did she schedule this? 4 days ago. She moved the appointment up this afternoon and paid an emergency fee. Did she request copies? 3. The brass key in my palm had become a model for doors I had never agreed to open. Aaron pointed toward the towel. I cut those from the new cylinder. I haven't handed them over. What about previous copies? His expression shifted. This isn't the first service call. He opened the company app on his tablet. 32 days earlier, Natalie had placed a 3-key order under my address. One was a duplicate of my original house key. The other 2 were cut from separate originals but billed to the same account. A note beside the order said owner, authorization verified. Mara leaned over the screen. That was the day after Daniel left. Aaron nodded. Same account. Who collected them? Customer pickup. The employee scanned an ID. He enlarged the record. Luke Carver's name appeared beneath the pickup signature. A pressure started behind my ribs, quiet and methodical. Not because Luke had a key, because Natalie had given him one before my plane reached Phoenix. I set the tablet on the console. Please email me everything. Work orders, receipts, identification records, timestamps. I'll have to speak with my manager. Then call your manager. My voice remained level, but it no longer existed to make anyone comfortable. Aaron stepped into the kitchen to make the call. Mara stayed near the entryway. I should have told you when I saw them. Yes. I keep wanting you to say it wasn't my fault. Part of it was. Her chin dipped. That hurts. It should. The old version of me would have softened the sentence. Added that Natalie manipulated her. Mentioned her father's surgery. Given Mara enough mercy to avoid feeling the exact weight of her choice. Instead, I picked up the old lock cylinder from the towel. I'm not saying you caused this, I said. I'm saying you helped her buy time. Mara pressed her lips together. I did. She did not ask me to forgive her. That mattered more than an apology delivered twice. We moved toward the study. The camera mount above the bookcase was empty. A short length of cable hung from the wall, cut cleanly rather than unplugged. My desk drawers stood open. The small fireproof safe beneath the window had been dragged 6 feet across the floor. Its door was open. The deed folder was gone. So were my passport, closing papers, insurance records, and the flash drive containing scans of my tax returns. Mara stopped at the threshold. Daniel, a wedding invitation lay face down beneath the desk. I bent to pick it up. The front carried the embossed date Natalie had chosen. Inside, someone had tested a blue marker across both our names until only hers remained readable. It was a childish thing. That made it hurt more. Expensive fraud had a purpose. A crossed-out name was personal. Mara reached toward the invitation, then stopped before touching it. I'm sorry. I placed it in the top drawer. Take pictures of everything. She began at the doorway, capturing wide shots before moving closer. Not because I instructed her how, because she understood evidence, had to show context before detail. Aaron returned with his phone at his ear. My manager wants us to stop work. He's sending the records to our compliance department. Good. We should also contact law enforcement. I will. His attention went to the cut camera cable. That wasn't like that when I arrived. Who was here? Miss Voss and a man. Luke, I guess. He carried several boxes outside. I assumed he had left, but I never saw the SUV pull away. She told me to finish and lock up. Did you enter the study? No. She said it was private. Mara photographed the safe. A strip of paper protruded from beneath it. I crouched and pulled it free. It was the lower half of a bank document, torn across the middle. Most of the page was missing, but the remaining lines were enough. Proposed collateral, residential property, business applicant, Northline Atelier, LLC, co-guarantor, Daniel Reed. Mara sat back on her heels. Northline Atelier. You know it? Her camera lowered. That's the studio Natalie said she wanted after the wedding. A phone number appeared at the bottom of the page. Beneath it, in smaller print, was a scheduled verification date. Tomorrow. My phone vibrated before I could stand. The caller ID showed Midwestern Community Bank. I answered. A woman introduced herself from the commercial lending department and asked whether I could confirm my attendance at the collateral review scheduled for 9 the next morning. I never agreed to a collateral review. The woman stopped speaking. Paper shifted on her end. Mr. Reed, we have an electronically signed guarantee bearing your name. The key cut into my palm. Freeze the application. I'll need to transfer you to fraud prevention. Do it. She placed me on hold. Mara was still staring at the torn page. Aaron had gone pale beside the desk. From the kitchen, glass shattered. All three of us turned. The back door stood open. A figure moved through the dark yard, carrying my fireproof document case. Luke was halfway across the yard before I recognized him. He shoved through the side gate, cut between Mrs. Alvarez's hedge and the detached garage, and disappeared toward the alley. I took 2 steps after him. Mara caught my coat. Don't give her the photograph she wants. The sentence stopped me harder than her hand. A man chasing someone through a dark yard would fit neatly beneath Natalie's message. Controlling, confrontational, unstable. I backed onto the patio and called 911. By the time officers arrived, Luke was gone. He had dropped nothing. The shattered kitchen glass came from a cabinet door he had hit while leaving, not a window. Aaron gave a statement. Mara photographed the safe, the cut camera cable, and every empty shelf in the study. The officers wrote down the bank's fraud number and gave me a case number of my own. Because Natalie had lived there and possessed a key, separating the property dispute from the fraud would take time. Natalie had already used 32 days of it. At 9 the next morning, Midwestern Community Bank froze the Northline application. At 10, my attorney, Aaron Shaw, told me not to contact Natalie directly, not to post online, and not to enter any room where someone could claim I had threatened them. At least until we know what she filed, Aaron said. I stood in my kitchen while Aaron installed the new lock. What if she already filed the story? Then we answer with documents. She sent it to people I work with. Documents, Aaron repeated. Not anger. The new key looked clean and anonymous beside my father's old one. At 4:30, Helen Voss called from a number I did not recognize. Daniel, Natalie wants to return your personal papers tonight. Where? The Foundation preview. The Halpern Arts Foundation was unveiling plans for a restored theater downtown. Natalie had organized the donor reception. My company was bidding on the restoration contract, and 3 members of the selection committee would be there. She can give the documents to my attorney. Helen lowered her voice. She says she needs to explain what happened before lawyers make everything uglier. Lawyers arrived after the forged signature. Please. There will be people there. She feels safer that way. That was the point. Natalie did not want safety. She wanted an audience. Mara stood at the opposite end of the counter, reading my face. When the call ended, she said, "She invited me too." "You're not going." Her expression changed. I heard the sentence after it left me. Not concern. An instruction. Natalie had spent a day telling people I managed women when they did not obey me, and I had just handed her the line she needed. Mara folded her arms. Try that again. I don't think you should have to walk into her event. Better. And she'll use you. She already is. I pressed both hands against the counter. If you speak, she'll call you jealous. If you stay quiet, she'll say silence proves guilt. I know the trap. And you still want to go? I want to decide where I stand. At 7, we entered the Halpern Theater through a lobby filled with white flowers, donor placards, and people trying not to stare. There were more than 60 guests. Marcus stood near the model of the proposed restoration with 2 executives from my company. Helen and Robert waited beside the staircase. The wedding party clustered near the bar. Natalie had done something more effective. She had invited every group whose opinion could cost us something. Mara wore a dark blue dress and no jewelry except a silver watch. She kept one hand around the strap of her bag. You can still leave, I said. So can you. Neither of us moved. A spoon tapped against a glass. Natalie stood beneath the theater's old proscenium arch in a cream dress, holding a microphone. Behind her, a projection screen displayed a photograph of my house, not the damaged study, the front porch. Mara and I were visible at the edge of the frame, arriving together after dark. I had hoped tonight would remain about the future of this building, Natalie began. But private fear has followed me into a public space. Nobody spoke. She described my Phoenix assignment as a period of increasing emotional volatility. She said I had monitored her movements through cameras, restricted access to our shared home, and involved Mara after discovering that the 2 women had been trying to set reasonable boundaries. Then she showed the message I had sent Mara 3 months earlier, after a family dinner. You deserve better than that. Nothing above it, nothing below. The missing context was Natalie mocking Mara's work in front of a donor and me checking that she had made it home safely. On the screen, it looked intimate. Natalie turned toward us. My sister has struggled for years with comparison and resentment. Daniel knew that. Mara stepped forward. Natalie, a new screenshot appeared. It was from Mara to her sister, sent almost a year earlier. Sometimes I think you don't understand what you have. Natalie let the audience read it. What began as emotional dependence, she said, became predatory. The word changed the lobby. A bridesmaid lowered her wine glass. One of the selection committee members leaned toward Marcus. Robert stared at the floor. Helen pressed a hand to her throat. Mara's face lost color. That message was about the way you spoke to him, she said. Natalie's expression softened with practiced sadness. You see? She is still protecting him. Mara opened her mouth again. I touched her elbow. Don't answer her here. Natalie did not miss it. There, she said quietly into the microphone. He decides when she speaks. Phones rose around us. I removed my hand. The old instinct arrived with perfect timing. Apologize for the disruption. Lower the temperature. Tell everyone this was private and should remain private. Leave without forcing anyone to choose what they believed. I'm sorry, I began. Natalie's shoulders relaxed. She knew that version of me. I felt my father's key in my pocket, its bent blue tag pressing against my fingers. No, I said. I'm not sorry I came home. Natalie's smile arrived a fraction late. I kept my voice even. I won't argue about a forged loan application at a fundraiser. My attorney will address the documents. The police will address what was removed from my house. A murmur moved through the guests. Natalie held up one hand. This is what I was afraid of. Threats disguised as procedure. They're case numbers, Natalie. Her grip tightened around the microphone. For 1 second, the polished concern disappeared. Then the foundation director crossed the lobby with 2 security officers. He did not approach Natalie. He stopped in front of Mara. I'm sorry, he said. Given the conflict, we need you to leave. Mara stared at him. She put my private messages on that screen. I understand. No, you don't. Helen took 1 step forward, then stopped when Natalie turned toward her. That small surrender hurt Mara more than the request. She adjusted the strap of her bag. I'll go. I'm coming with you, I said. Natalie spoke into the microphone before we reached the doors. Daniel, please don't isolate her from her family. The phones followed us. Outside, Mara walked down the theater steps without speaking. Camera flashes came from the glass behind us, as guests recorded our departure. Marcus caught up near the curb. He kept his voice low. The city committee asked that you be removed from the theater bid until this is reviewed. Mara shut her eyes. My phone lit with an email from the company president. Administrative. Leave effective immediately. Through the lobby windows, Natalie was still standing beneath the photograph of my house. She had promised to return my documents. Instead, she had taken my name out of the building. The rain started before we reached the parking garage. By the time Mara climbed into my truck, water had darkened the shoulders of her dress, and the strap of her bag hung by a few threads. She placed it on the floor instead of asking me to fix it. Neither of us spoke during the drive. My phone kept lighting on the console. Coworkers, wedding guests, two numbers I did not recognize. I turned it face down. Mara watched the windshield. "You should answer, Marcus." "Not yet." He tried to help. "I know. You're angry with me." "Yes." She nodded, as if the answer gave her something solid to hold. The police had cleared my house before we returned. Yellow evidence tape covered the study door, and an officer had left a card on the kitchen counter with instructions not to disturb anything inside. We stayed in the laundry room because it was the only place that did not feel searched. It was barely wide enough for the washer, dryer, utility sink, and two adults trying not to touch. Mara sat on the closed washer while I found a repair kit. Her broken bag strap lay across my knee. "You don't have to do that," she said. "It will tear the rest of the way. I can buy another bag. That one has your laptop in it." I pushed a curved needle through the leather and pulled the thread tight. The task gave my hands somewhere useful to be. Mara removed her wet shoes. A red mark crossed her ankle where the strap had rubbed. "There's a first aid box above you." "I'm fine." That wasn't a diagnosis. She found an adhesive bandage and covered the raw skin. No performance. No argument about whether she deserved care. The dryer turned behind her, carrying the damp coat I had given her at the theater. Its metal buttons struck the drum at uneven intervals. Mara folded her hands. "There's more than the restaurant." The needle stopped halfway through the strap. "How much more?" "I helped Natalie prepare the Northline presentation. I know you designed the logo." "Not just the logo." She studied the bandage on her ankle. 6 weeks ago, she sent me the investor deck. Your name was on the financial page. As what? Property-backed guarantor. The thread cut into my finger. A small line of blood appeared beside the nail. Mara reached for the first aid box, then withdrew her hand before touching me. I wrapped the finger myself. "You saw my name tied to the house before I left." "Yes, and you never asked me." She said you had agreed to guarantee the lease after the wedding. The application wasn't for a lease. "I know that now." "You knew enough then." Her shoulders lowered. "Yes." Rain ticked against the narrow window above the sink. "Why didn't you say anything?" "My father's procedure was scheduled. My mother was already crying every day. Natalie said one more family crisis would make him cancel it. That explains fear. It doesn't explain the rest." Mara's jaw tightened. "She paid me to design the presentation." The dryer buttons struck the drum again. "How much?" $4,800. The amount was not large enough to explain a stolen house. It was large enough to explain a choice. "I needed the deposit for my studio," she said. "I told myself I was being hired for design work, not approving the numbers." "You saw my name." "Yes." "You saw the house listed." "Yes." "And you took the money." "Yes." She did not hide behind her mother this time. I set the bag on top of the dryer. "You weren't only protecting Natalie." "No, you were protecting the job." "Partly." "What was the other part?" Mara's eyes met mine. "If you married her, whatever I felt would have to end." The laundry room seemed smaller. She continued before I could answer. "I thought the wedding would make the line permanent. You would be my brother-in-law. I could stop wondering why talking to you felt easier than talking to anyone else. I could stop hating myself every time she dismissed you and I noticed. So you helped her get me to the altar. I helped her keep everything quiet, long enough to reach it." The distinction did not help. Mara stood, but there was nowhere to step without coming closer. Her knee brushed mine. She moved back until the utility sink pressed against her hip. "I didn't stay silent only because I was afraid," she said. "Part of me wanted the wedding to happen because it would solve my problem. At my expense." "Yes." "And part of you wanted it to fail." Her face tightened. "Yes." That answer hurt differently. Her loyalty had not been clean in either direction. She had protected Natalie while resenting her, protected me while withholding what I needed, and called the conflict helplessness, because choosing would have exposed too much. I picked up the bag and tested the repaired strap. "You should have told me." "I should have. You should have returned the money. I spent it on the studio deposit. Then you should have told me anyway." "I know." "No. You know now." She took the bag from me. Are you going to give Natalie the presentation files? I asked. I already copied them for your attorney. I felt irritation rise. You did that before telling me this? Yes. Why? Because evidence was easier than confession. The honesty left no comfortable place to stand. Mara's wet hair had begun to curl near her cheek. A drop of water rested beneath her ear. She brushed it away, and her hand trembled once. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she said. Good. I'm not asking you to trust me tonight. Also good. But I won't lie again to make this easier. Her voice dropped on the final word. We were close enough that I could see where her lipstick had faded. Close enough to remember every family dinner when she had found me near the grill and asked a normal question while Natalie worked the crowd. Wanting her did not arrive like a revelation. It arrived like recognition, which was more dangerous. Mara's fingers tightened around the repaired strap. Daniel, I touched her wrist. She did not lean forward. Neither did I. Not tonight, I said. Her breath caught. Because you don't want me? Because I do. The dryer stopped. I released her wrist. Not because she hurt both of us. Not while I'm deciding what parts of my life were real, and not while you're trying to turn guilt into usefulness. Pain crossed her face, followed by something steadier. I won't be your revenge. I know. I won't be the place you hide from what she did. I know that too. She lifted the bag onto her shoulder. If anything happens between us, it can't begin in this house tonight. No, then I need somewhere else to sleep. The guest room is clean. That would still be hiding here. She was right. I booked her a room at an extended stay hotel near her office. She insisted on paying and forwarded the Northline files to Aaron before we left. At the front door, Mara set my father's old key in the ceramic bowl beside the new one. You should keep that, I said. It was never mine. Her fingers remained on the blue home tag for a moment. Then her phone rang. She read the name and went still. My biggest client, she said. Answer it. Mara did. The voice on the other end was loud enough for me to hear one sentence. We need to discuss whether your involvement with Daniel Reed makes you unsuitable for the city exhibit. Mara held the repaired strap against her shoulder. This time, neither of us pretended the cost had stopped at the theater. The hotel room Mara rented had one chair, a narrow desk, and a window facing the back of a pharmacy. She sent me a photograph at 7 the next morning. Luxury, she wrote. 3 air conditioning units and a man fighting a vending machine. I typed 3 replies before sending one. Did you sleep? Not much. You? Same. That was the boundary in practice. No late-night drive to check on her. No invitation to return because the house felt too empty. No pretending concern gave either of us permission to use the other as shelter. At 8, Aaron Shaw arrived with 2 coffees and a legal pad. Aaron's lock records, the police report, and the frozen loan application covered my dining table. The old brass key sat apart from them in the ceramic bowl. Aaron removed her coat. Your bank has placed a fraud hold on the property. What does that mean? No sale, refinance, or equity transaction until they review every document tied to Northline. Your home equity line is frozen too. I had opened that line as an emergency reserve for bonded projects. Aaron turned another page. Your employer asked whether the freeze affects your financial disclosure. My company president called 10 minutes later. He did not sound angry. Anger would have been easier. Daniel, the city wants distance until the investigation is complete. I understand. Administrative leave remains in place. Paid? A pause. Through Friday. It was Wednesday. After that, I would use vacation time. When it ran out, the leave became unpaid. How long will the review take? They didn't give a date. Of course not. A deadline creates responsibility. I need your company laptop returned today. Access will be suspended. The black bag still sat beside my suitcase near the door. I'll bring it in. Security will meet you downstairs. Not Marcus. Security. When the call ended, Erin wrote on her pad. You don't have to make that face. What face? The one where you calculate how to make bad news convenient for everyone else. I picked up the colder coffee. I'm estimating runway. How much? 3 months. Without touching retirement. Less, if legal bills climb. They will. I appreciate your optimism. I bill for accuracy. My phone rang. Mara. The city exhibit canceled my contract. Did they put it in writing? Yes. Reputational incompatibility. That sounds invented. It sounds like 6 people approved it before ruining my morning. I heard a drawer close. What are you doing? Packing samples. The contract was 40% of my quarter. Without it, I can't make the second studio payment. The $4,800 Natalie had paid her was already in the deposit. How much is the payment? No. I asked a number, and I heard an offer behind it. It wasn't an offer. It was putting on its shoes. Aaron's pen stopped. Mara, you lost the contract because Natalie dragged you onto that screen. I also lost it because my name is on the Northline deck. You're giving Aaron the files. That doesn't erase that I took the job. No, losing the studio won't repair it either. Paying my rent would turn you into the person who absorbs every consequence, so nobody else has to. The sentence found its target. What are you going to do? Ask the landlord to reduce the space. Sell equipment. Call former clients and tell them the truth before they hear a cleaner version. That may not be enough. Then I lose the studio. She said it without drama. The willingness to pay did not make her innocent. It made the apology real. I can review the lease. Advice, not money. Agreed. And you're not coming over because I sound upset. I hadn't offered. You were putting on shoes. Despite everything, I smiled. Send the lease. After we hung up, Aaron told me insurance would not cover the missing documents until police decided whether Natalie's access made the loss a domestic dispute or theft. The title company wanted an affidavit. The bank wanted handwriting samples, travel records, and every communication about Northline. Then Aaron reached the final page. Natalie's attorney is demanding access to the house. Why? She claims established residency and says you conducted an illegal lockout. She removed my documents and forged my name. Both things can exist in separate legal files. The idea of her returning made the walls feel occupied again. What happens if I refuse? She can ask a judge for temporary access or claim you destroyed property. I walked to the entryway. Natalie's coat, shoes, and framed photographs were gone. The careful emptiness made sense. She had removed enough to leave, but not enough to stop claiming the house. We inventory everything today, Aaron said. Then one supervised collection. I don't want her here. That isn't the legal question. My hand closed around the new key. For years, I thought boundaries meant saying no calmly enough that a reasonable person would accept it. Natalie had taught me the missing half. A boundary without a cost was only a request. Set it for tomorrow, I said. You attend. An officer attends. Mara doesn't. Aaron studied me. Why specify Mara? Because I wanted her nearby. Because facing Natalie without the one person who believed me felt harder than it should have. Because Mara isn't my shield. Aaron nodded. At noon, I returned the company laptop. A security officer signed a receipt without meeting my eyes. Marcus waited across the street beside his truck. He handed me a paper bag and my personal coffee mug. They boxed your desk, he said. That was fast. Cowards are efficient. You could get dragged into this. I poured concrete in February. I'm not afraid of a donor board. He did not offer to fix anything. He just stood there while employees passed through the lobby. That mattered. The mug had a chip near the handle from a site trailer in Dayton. I had used it through 4 promotions and 2 company restructures. Seeing it outside the building made the leave feel less temporary. Marcus glanced toward the lobby. They're already dividing your projects. Who took the hospital renovation? Coleman. He'll miss the permit sequence. I told him, you shouldn't be managing my work for me. I'm protecting concrete, not your feelings. He opened his truck door. Come back when you can do the job. Until then, stop apologizing for making people uncomfortable with facts. Back home, I photographed every closet and shelf. Natalie had left 6 dresses, 2 boxes of family photographs, and a locked suitcase in the guest room. At the bottom of the hall closet, beneath a blanket, I found a second ceramic bowl. Inside were 3 brass keys. Each carried a blue tag printed with one word, home. My father's handwriting had been imitated badly. One key fit my front door before Aaron changed the lock. The second opened the study. The third belonged to a property I did not recognize. A label on the back carried a downtown address, Northline's future studio. My phone rang. Mara had sent the lease. Beneath it was another message. I know that address. Then she sent a photograph from the Northline presentation. The final slide showed the downtown studio. In the corner, reflected in the glass of a rendering, Natalie was holding my missing document case. At 8 the next morning, a process server handed me an envelope on my own porch. Natalie's attorney arrived 30 seconds later. He wore a navy overcoat, carried a leather folder, and introduced himself as Thomas Bell before I could finish reading the first page. Temporary civil protection order. The petition said I had monitored Natalie through cameras, pursued Luke across private property, removed her access to a shared residence, and appeared at her workplace with Mara after being asked to stay away. The theater had become her workplace. My yard had become Luke's private property. My camera had become surveillance. Erin read over my shoulder. "This is temporary," she said. "No finding has been made." Bell adjusted his gloves. "Mr. Reed must avoid direct contact with Miss Voss and remain 200 feet from Northline Atelier until the hearing." The address on the third copied key was now somewhere I could not legally approach. Natalie stepped out of a black sedan across the street. Helen and Robert followed. She wore flat shoes, a pale coat, and the same careful expression she had used beneath the theater screen. A deputy met her at the curb for the supervised collection. Mara was not there. That had been the boundary. She had emailed the Northline files to Erin, then gone to her studio to meet the landlord. Natalie stopped at the foot of the porch. "I'm not here to fight." Bell's phone was already recording. Erin answered for me. "Then collect the items on the inventory." Natalie walked through the new front door without touching me. Helen followed with empty boxes. Robert stayed outside beside the deputy. The first 10 minutes were quiet. Shoes, dresses, family photographs, kitchen equipment Natalie had bought before moving in. Then she pointed toward the study. "My professional files are in there." "It's a restricted scene," the deputy said. "My sister planted material in that office." The accusation was so clean it sounded prepared because it was. Bell opened his folder and handed Erin a printed email. It came from Natalie to a bank investigator. Mara Voss had access to the Northline presentation, Daniel's identification records, and the studio's digital account. Given their undisclosed relationship, I believe she altered documents to create the appearance of fraud. A second page contained the message Mara had sent me 3 weeks earlier. "Yes, Natalie is still at the fitting." Below it was Mara's invoice for $4,800. Bell tapped the papers. "Your primary witness lied to Mr. Reed and was paid through the applicant's business." Helen set down the box she was carrying. "Primary witness?" Natalie turned to her mother. "Mara has been building this with him." Helen's face did not show belief. It showed relief at being given a sentence that required no choice. "I knew she was angry," she said. The deputy shifted his weight. Robert remained visible through the open door, staring at the sidewalk. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Erin had told me not to answer anything during the collection, but the screen showed Mara's name. Then a second call. Then a text. "The bank investigator is at my studio. Natalie says I fabricated the deck." I passed the phone to Erin. She read it and called the number immediately. While she spoke near the stairs, Natalie carried a box of framed photographs toward the porch. "You can stop this," she said without facing me. I kept my hands at my sides. "How?" "Sign a mutual statement. We both acknowledge the engagement ended under stress. No abuse, no fraud, no affair, no public accusations. You took my documents. I protected business records from an escalating situation. You used my house as collateral. Northline never received funding. That isn't the same as permission." She set the box down. Mara could lose everything. The sentence was aimed with care. Her studio, her clients, possibly her city vendor status, if the bank treats her files as falsified work. "You filed the complaint." I answered questions. She moved closer, staying outside the distance the deputy had marked. "You know what happens when institutions get nervous. They remove the easiest person." That was true. It was also the kind of truth Natalie used best. My phone vibrated again in Erin's hand. She ended the call. "The bank has asked Mara to surrender her laptop and phone. They are classifying her as a participant until the file history is verified." Helen pressed both hands to her coat. "Oh God." Natalie did not react. That absence told me more than surprise would have. Bell produced another document. The settlement required me to withdraw the police complaint, tell my employer that no property fraud had occurred, and accept a joint statement describing the dispute as private. In exchange, Natalie would return the missing documents and request that the protection order be dismissed after 30 days. Erin read the first paragraph. "No," Bell ignored her. "Mr. Reed should consider whether being right is worth destroying 2 careers." The old instinct did not arrive as fear. It arrived as arithmetic. My unpaid leave, Mara's canceled contract, legal bills, a frozen credit line, her laptop being carried away while clients watched. One signature could stop the public bleeding. I took Belle's pen. Aaron caught my wrist. Daniel, I need a minute. Natalie's shoulders softened. Not victory yet. Recognition. She had seen me choose peace before. My thumb rested against the pen clip. Then Mara's voice came through Aaron's phone on speaker. Don't sign anything. Behind her, a man asked whether the gray laptop belonged to her. Mara, I said. I'm handing them both devices. You need counsel first. I have counsel on the way. You could lose the studio. I might. Natalie says she'll return everything, if... Don't use me to make silence sound noble. Nobody on the porch moved. Mara continued. I lied to you. I took her money. I ignored your name on that page. I will say all of that under oath. Helen sat down on the lowest stair. Mara, sweetheart. No, Mom. You don't get to call me that while you help her turn my confession into her alibi. Helen covered her mouth. Mara's voice shook, but it did not retreat. Daniel, if you sign a statement saying there was no fraud, you aren't protecting me. You're making my mistake useful to her again. The pen felt heavier than it should have. I handed it back to Belle. No agreement. Natalie answered too quickly. Then, whatever happens to Mara is on you. The deputy turned toward her. Not because she had shouted, because concern had vanished from her voice. Aaron folded the settlement in half. No, I said. What happens next belongs to the people who chose it. Natalie picked up the photograph box and walked to the sedan. Helen remained on the stair until Robert came for her. By noon, the bank had Mara's devices. Her landlord suspended access to the studio because investigators might need the space preserved. My employer extended unpaid leave indefinitely. At 2, Robert sent me a copy of the affidavit he had signed for Natalie. Daniel appeared emotionally attached to Mara before the engagement ended. He added one line beneath it in a different pen. I no longer know whether that statement was true when I signed it. It was not a retraction. It was the first crack in the family wall. At 4, Luke called Aaron. He would cooperate only if the bank guaranteed he would not be treated as the person who created the forged guarantee. Before hanging up, he sent one photograph. Natalie stood inside Northline's unfinished studio beside my document case. On the wall behind her was a whiteboard. 3 dates were written across it. My departure, the bank verification, our wedding. A line connected all 3. The emergency hearing took place 3 days later in a county conference room that had been borrowed from another department. No jury box, no polished courtroom rail, just a long table, 12 plastic chairs, and a wall clock that ran 4 minutes fast. Natalie sat beside Thomas Bell with a legal pad in front of her. Helen and Robert waited behind them. The bank sent its fraud investigator. My company sent a compliance officer. The city sent counsel because the theater contract and Mara's exhibit had both become part of the same public mess. The chair beside mine remained empty. Her attorney had advised her to remain available by phone while investigators verified the files taken from her laptop. She had wanted to come. I had wanted her in the chair beside mine. Neither want changed what was clean. Aaron placed my father's brass key on the table. The blue tag faced me. Home. Judge Elaine Foster began with Natalie's request to extend the protection order. Bell described me as a man whose private disappointment had escalated into surveillance, workplace confrontation, and a campaign against 2 sisters. Mr. Reed recruited Miss Voss, he said, meaning Mara, because she had both emotional motive and technical access. Natalie kept her hands folded. Bell displayed the messages already shown at the theater. My note to Mara, her old complaint about Natalie, the lie about the bridal fitting, the Northline invoice. He did not mention the copied keys. He did not mention the cut camera cable. He did not mention my electronically signed guarantee. A story becomes powerful when every missing piece benefits the same person. Then Luke entered through the side door. Natalie's pen stopped. Belle leaned toward her, but she did not turn. Luke wore a borrowed suit jacket and carried no documents. He sat beside the bank investigator, swore to tell the truth, and admitted Natalie had told him our engagement was privately over. She said Daniel was delaying the announcement because of the wedding deposits, he said. Did you know the house belonged solely to Mr. Reed? Aaron asked. Not at first. When did you learn? The day I picked up the keys. Natalie wrote something too hard. The pen tore the paper. Luke explained that she had given him a scanned copy of my license and told him the lock company required it because I was traveling. She said I had approved Northline and wanted no direct contact because we were separating. Why did you remove boxes from the house? She said they contained business records. Did you enter the study? Yes. Did you cut the camera cable? Luke's mouth tightened. Yes. Belle stood. On whose instruction? Luke faced Natalie. Hers. Judge Foster raised one hand before the lawyers could speak over each other. Luke continued. At the studio, Natalie had separated my documents into 3 boxes. Identity records, property records, financial records. The whiteboard dates marked when I left, when the bank would verify the application, and when the wedding would make her use of my name easier to explain. Belle called that interpretation. Luke called it her plan. Then Erin placed the photograph of the whiteboard on the display screen. Natalie's composure held. The image came from Mara's files, she said. Anything on her devices is compromised. Erin did not argue. She displayed the original message Luke had sent from his phone, including the timestamp and location data. Natalie's fingers opened. Only once. Enough. The bank investigator testified next. The guarantee had been created from a commercial application account registered to Natalie. The signature field used an image imported from a construction contract stored in my document case. No funds had been released, but the application had passed preliminary review because the supporting records appeared authentic. Belle repeated that no loan had closed. The investigator answered, "Attempted fraud does not become harmless because verification worked." When it was my turn, Erin asked me to state my name and occupation. Then she sat down. She had told me beforehand that the final story could not sound like hers. I put both hands on the table. I was engaged to Natalie Voss. I trusted her with a key to my house. I trusted her with access to my records. I also spent years making it easy for her to avoid difficult questions. Belle rose. "Mr. Reed is offering relationship commentary." Judge Foster motioned for him to sit. I continued. When Natalie called me controlling, I searched for ways I might have caused her fear. When she said I created pressure, I stopped asking where she had been. I believed that keeping my voice low made me fair. Natalie watched me without blinking. I was wrong. A quiet person can still help a lie survive. Belle slid a document toward me. "Did you have feelings for Mara before your engagement ended?" There it was, the question built to make every answer useful. I trusted Mara before the engagement ended. That was not my question. I may have had feelings I refused to examine. Mara had feelings she did not act on. She also lied to me, accepted money from Northline, and ignored information she should have disclosed. Helen shifted behind Natalie. Belle had expected defense. I gave him the truth. Mara's mistakes do not make Natalie's documents real. My denial does not make forged consent valid. Luke's affair with Natalie does not create my signature. Natalie spoke before Belle could stop her. He was never supposed to see that copy. The clock seemed to stop 4 minutes fast. Judge Foster leaned forward. "What copy, Miss Voss?" Natalie's face changed. Not panic. Calculation arriving too late. I meant the copy Mara fabricated. Erin remained seated. "We have not introduced a copied guarantee." Belle touched Natalie's arm. She pulled away. "That is what this has been about for weeks." "No," Erin said. "We referred only to an electronically signed guarantee." Natalie turned toward the bank investigator. "You told them about the paper file?" Nobody answered. Her breathing sharpened. The investigator opened a sealed evidence envelope and removed a printed guarantee recovered that morning from a locked cabinet at Northline. Natalie stared at it. That copy was never supposed to leave the bank file. The words entered the record before Belle could object. Then the mask broke. Natalie stood and pointed at Luke. "You said you destroyed it." Luke did not move. "You told me the cabinet was empty." Judge Foster ordered her to sit. She did not. "You all think he's innocent because he speaks softly," she said, turning toward me. "He makes you feel cruel for needing anything. He leaves and calls it work. He watches you give up, then acts surprised when you stop asking permission. Some of it was accusation. Some of it was pain. I did not need to erase one to prove the other. I left you alone too often," I said. "I treated providing as proof that I was present. I should have ended our engagement when trust became something we performed for other people." Her expression shifted, expecting an apology large enough to climb through. "But you didn't lose me to Mara." Belle whispered her name. Natalie remained standing. You lost me when you decided my silence belonged to you. Judge Foster ordered a recess. When we returned, the protection order was dissolved. The recovered guarantee, the key service records, and Luke's statement were referred to the county prosecutor. The bank maintained the property freeze, while its investigation continued. No one applauded. My company did not reinstate me. The city did not return Mara's contract. Helen cried into a tissue. Robert sat beside her without reaching for Natalie or for me. As deputies asked Natalie to remain for questions, she picked up the brass key from the evidence table. For 1 second, she held the blue home tag between her fingers. That house was supposed to be ours. I took the key back. It was supposed to be honest. Outside, reporters waited beyond the courthouse steps. Erin asked whether I wanted her to make a statement. I put the old key into my pocket. No. This time, silence was not surrender. The truth had already heard my voice. 6 months after the hearing, my house still had 2 locks. Erin had replaced the front cylinder again after the bank released the property freeze. The second lock was a sliding bolt I installed myself at shoulder height. I checked both every night, sometimes twice. The prosecutor's office still classified the Northline case as an active investigation. Natalie had not been charged with every offense the newspapers had speculated about, and she had not escaped everything her attorney called a misunderstanding. The forged guarantee remained under review. The protection order petition had been dismissed. The foundation terminated her position after the board discovered she had used donor contacts to circulate personal accusations. None of that returned the months cleanly. My company reinstated me after 12 weeks, but not to the theater project. Coleman kept it. The president offered me a different restoration outside the city and described it as a fresh start. I accepted the work. I stopped pretending it was the same as getting my old place back. Marcus returned my chipped coffee mug on my first morning. "Security washed it," he said. "That feels invasive. It needed help before the scandal." He left before the conversation could become sincere. Mara lost the studio. Her landlord kept the deposit after the investigation disrupted the lease, and 2 clients never answered her calls again. The bank cleared her of creating the forged documents, but the written finding also recorded that she had ignored Daniel Reed's name in the financial materials and accepted payment for the presentation. She framed that letter, not because she was proud of it, because she said absolution without accountability was just another polished lie. She rented a desk in a shared workspace above a bakery. The windows were smaller than the ones she had wanted, and the freight elevator worked only when someone kicked the inside panel. Her first independent project was a reading room for a neighborhood clinic. She sent me photographs of every chair before ordering one. I answered with the same advice each time: make sure it exists. She called that my design philosophy. We did not move in together. For the first 2 months, we met in public places: coffee shops, parks, a diner where the fries were good enough to survive difficult conversations. On our 3rd dinner, Mara reached across the table and touched the scar beside my thumbnail where the leather needle had slipped. "Are we still waiting because it's right?" she asked. "Or because waiting feels safer?" I turned my fork over once. "Both. At least that's honest. I'm trying a new thing." She smiled, but neither of us pretended honesty solved timing. We kissed in the parking lot that night. Carefully. The next morning, I woke before 6 and checked whether she had changed her mind before I checked the locks. That embarrassed me enough to tell her. She did not call it romantic. She said, "I don't want you measuring safety by whether I stay." So we kept separate keys and separate addresses. Helen began seeing Mara for breakfast every other Sunday. Sometimes Robert came. Sometimes he sat in his truck for 10 minutes before entering, because apologies had not made him comfortable with being ashamed. Natalie did not attend. Helen still spoke to her daughter. Mara did not ask her to stop. She only refused to receive updates disguised as concern. One Sunday, Helen brought the crooked airport sign. She had found it folded beneath Natalie's things. "Welcome home, Danielle." The marker had bled at the edges from the rain. Mara placed it in the trunk of her car. "You keeping that?" I asked. "I haven't decided." That answer was progress. Not everything needed to become a symbol the day it was returned. My father's key stayed in the ceramic bowl by my front door. It no longer opened the new lock. The brass had darkened around the edges, and the blue home tag had cracked where Mara gripped it at the airport. One evening in October, she arrived carrying soup, 2 library books, and a small wooden box. "No occasion," she said. "Which means you're not allowed to be suspicious." That seems strategically suspicious. She put the soup in the kitchen and set the box beside the ceramic bowl. Inside was a shallow tray lined with blue felt. "For keys?" I asked. "For whatever you don't want in your pocket anymore." She did not take the old key from me. She did not ask for a new one. I placed my father's key in the tray myself. The copied keys remained in an evidence bag at Aaron's office. The one for Northline would probably spend years under a case number. I no longer needed to see them to believe what had happened. Mara stayed for dinner. Afterward, we stood at the front door while I checked the cylinder, then the sliding bolt. My hand returned to the first lock. She waited. No joke. No reassurance that nobody was coming. No promise that I would stop doing this someday. I checked it again. "Ready?" she asked. "Not quite." "All right." She picked up her coat and stood beside me until my breathing settled. Then I opened the door. Autumn air moved through the entryway. Across the street, Mrs. Alvarez lifted one hand from her porch chair. Mara waved back. I turned off the porch light. The old key rested in its new box behind us. It could not open the house anymore. It still belonged to the story. So did the crossed-out invitation in my desk drawer. So did Mara's framed bank letter. Surviving a lie did not mean throwing away every object it touched. Sometimes it meant deciding which objects were evidence, which were warnings, and which could sit quietly without controlling the room. Mara slipped her hand into mine as we walked toward the sidewalk. She did not lead me away from the house. I locked it, chose to leave, and went with her. Some people do not destroy you by shouting. They do it by writing a version of you that everyone else can believe. And sometimes, the person who helps you survive is not the person who fixes your life. It is the person who finally says, "No, that is not what happened." If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments, have you ever had to fight for the truth of your own life? And if you want more stories like this, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.